Welcome to Random But Memorable, a podcast from 1Password. I'm Roo, head of password manager development.
I'm Matt Davey, 1Password's Chief Experience Officer.
I'm Sarah, one of the founders at 1Password.
I'm Anna, the producer behind the show.
And we're the hosts behind Random But Memorable. Together, we offer up bi-weekly security advice, interview special guests from the cybersecurity community, and round up the latest security news in Watchtower Weekly. Plus, we may even play a silly security game or two. So sit back and enjoy the show.
I probably have to address, I'm going to sound weird in this episode. I've bitten my tongue to an incredible degree.
What?
And I feel like I just have a bit of like meat flapping in my mouth, and that's what my tongue is. Do you know when you bite your tongue so hard?
And you just, and it gets in the way. And
I did it on a 10-hour flight once. I bit my tongue about 20 minutes in, and it's all I thought about the entire time.
What was it? Sorry, I didn't have headphones for a second. What did you do on a 10-hour flight?
Matt decided to eat himself. He's bitten his tongue.
I bit my tongue.
Oh, like literally?
I was eating a bit of cheese. Yeah.
I thought you meant like you were trying not to say something. Okay.
Oh, no. I really bit my own tongue, and now...
What were you eating?
A bit of cheese. I had a meat and cheese party at the weekend, which is basically... I just had some friends over. I went full hog on this and decided to import some cheese. I have ordered way too much. I think we ate about 10% of the cheese during the event that I bought the cheese from. And so now I'm just eating. There's just crackers everywhere. There's cheese everywhere.
Oh.
Everything else is gone. I've even used up one of the chutneys.
There's no food in the house. It's just cheese.
Yeah.
I've even used up one of the chutneys. The chutney's the first thing to go always.
And the quince.
It's remarkable the different lifestyles we live.
It is, isn't it?
It really is. It's shocking. I'm
out
of cheese strings. Moving on.
Oh.
I like Cracker Barrel medium cheddar. The end.
Yeah, exactly.
Our cheese comes not in a can in England.
Oh God, no. We don't not in a can. Ugh.
You can't aerosolize it.
Oh, that's not cheese. That's confetti that you've put food filters in.
Here's the thing, Sarah. Matthew is still a child and has not yet realized the full pain of existence that is adulthood.
Right.
And the fact that you can't just eat a mountain of cheese for weeks on end.
This comes from the full-grown man who fell off a skateboard. I don't think I need to say anything more. You had, I would say, a very large amount of time off work for falling off a skateboard. So I think it's probably in your official record somewhere.
It could be. Yes. Maybe.
I just love that you were like, Matt hasn't grown up, and I'm the one that only eats medium cheddar. I'm like on the exec committee. They're like, how do we get everything together? What's everyone's menu's preference? And then they look at me and it's like, okay, well, that's a toddler. Are there chicken nuggets on the menu? Otherwise, forget it. Like, where's the kids menu? We can't go there because Sarah can't eat.
Can we get some chicky nuggies?
That is amazing.
God, I love that.
All right, Roo, do you want to get into your guest tease?
Yes. Before we get into some From the Vault, I wanted to mention who I'll be chatting with a little later on, as Frank Lee will be joining us. Frank is a professor of cybersecurity and was involved in a recent study showing how outdated password policies are still widespread today. This is the largest study of its kind, and it really sheds some light on existing password policies and how we still have a lot of work to do to improve current practices and standards across the board. So you'll get to hear from Frank later on in the show.
I love that. I love a little research. Before we get into all of that, though, let's do some From the Vault. We have some exciting news to share on the podcast today because Random But Memorable recently won an award on the 2024 Signal Awards. Yay!
It's just golden radio. I can't believe it.
We won for Best Branded Podcast in Technology, taking home the Silver Award. After 6 years of making and releasing episodes, wow, you and Roo have been at it for a long time. I love this. We are so excited and honored to be acknowledged by the judging panel. Thank you all very much. It feels like an amazing milestone for the show and a great way to we're almost there. We're almost going to close out another season. And we've got a lovely trophy that's going to be going along with it to add to the mantle of recognition that we all love to have. So thank you to all of our listeners for their support, for tuning in and their engagement with the show. It's all of you that are the reason that we are here, and you guys make it all very worthwhile for us, and this is always a highlight for my week. So thank you all, and yay for us. Yay.
I try and be an optimist, but I was pretty down on this award. I thought we were battling against some pretty big names.
Well, we were against the guy from Dexter, right?
We were, who for some reason has a cybersecurity podcast, which is quite odd. I don't know how much he cares about that, but this is incredible. So look at that.
No, this wasn't the fan choice. I mean, we tried to get the fan choice one too, but we actually won a legit, a panel of industry experts spent some time listening to all of this, and we won. That's amazing.
What were they thinking?
They were thinking about cheese.
Look, they haven't heard the brilliant, content that we provided this time. From the cheese to Roo having to leave because he has to take his car because he hit a deer, all of the things.
Oh, no.
All right, I got to go drive my busted car to Sawyer's doctor appointment.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Okay. I will catch you both later. Thank you.
All right.
But I do love you both.
Good luck.
All right, bye.
Well, that's the joy of what this show is all about. It's all completely random. Maybe that's what they need in their lives. Less predictability, more what on earth is going on over there. And that is what we aim to bring you every single time.
More instant topics, less planning, and more let's talk about me biting my tongue.
Exactly.
Okay, we're going to jump into some Watchtower Weekly. This is where we run down some of the latest security headlines from the last couple of weeks and share out what we think of them. Sometimes we take them seriously and sometimes we do not. So this is what we have this week. New password hack attack. Oh, I already don't like it. So this new password hack attack is across LastPass, Chrome, Facebook, Netflix, PayPal. And this one's from Forbes. So, a major hacking campaign using fake Chrome web store reviews en masse has put LastPass, Chrome, Facebook, Netflix, PayPal users at risk. I think that's a highlight of the group, but really this is an attack that can face anybody. But on October 30th, LastPass was first to issue a warning to make users of its Chrome extension aware of an ongoing password hacking campaign. This, I'm going to say, Forbes have used the wording password hacking. I'm not sure that is what is actually going on here.
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure this is a scam rather than a hack. Mm-hmm. So threat actors have been submitting fake reviews in bulk to LastPass's Chrome Web Store app page, promoting all users to call a fake support number that is controlled by the threat actor. So anyone calling the fake support number at a time, when they are vulnerable because they're obviously seeking help for a problem, will be asked about the product they are having issues with and ultimately directed to a site where their credentials can be exposed and stolen. So, this is a scam, not hack, but
yeah,
it is one that has been repeated across a couple of sites.
And is really common.
And I actually think it is quite convincing.
Oh, well, when you Google, I hate to say it, but when you Google 1Password support, there's been a paid ad on there, and it's here's the 1-800 number, call and get support. And God. It is not us. It's not us. When you look at the URL right away there, I'm not going to give the name of the company. It's scamsite.com/get-a-rap/
right.
we can help you / give us your credit card at $1.99 a minute / ask 1Password. I think that's just the way the world works is people are wanting to get your money and they're trying to do whatever they can. And I think it really reminds folks being on the internet is like driving a car. You can't just go and just do it and hope it drives you wherever you want to go. You have to watch the signs and look for the road markers and pay attention a little bit. It's like getting on a city bus even. You have to pay attention to where you're going. You have to really be an active participant online. Otherwise, what's happened here, you find yourself, well, yes, sure, here's my credit card, and then bad things.
I like the metaphor of using a transit system. When I moved to Toronto for the first time I got on the TTC, and I didn't know what I was doing. And this is back when it was tokens. So you had to go somewhere, buy tokens, and then show up in the thing and put the token in. And the driver shouted at me, if you don't know the system, don't use the system. And I always remember that as I wonder whether we need an online version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this investigation was by Bleeping Computer.
Yes.
And it has found that the password hacking scam...
And hacking.
Again, they use the word password hacking. This scam has extended its reach far beyond users of just the LastPass Chrome extension. The telephone number is being promoted as a support center contact for a vast number of well-known online brands. So I think it's kind of mean for Forbes, honestly, to highlight a password manager because they know it's a bigger deal.
Yeah. And because it's not hacking.
It's not. No.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. It's not on LastPass. It's actually on Google and their kind of review process for people leaving reviews. Because obviously, like, these are checked. I just don't think you should be able to put phone numbers into App Store reviews or Chrome extension reviews. Mm-hmm. So, the telephone number is across Amazon, Adobe, Facebook, Hulu, YouTube TV, Verizon, Netflix, Roku, PayPal, Squarespace, and iCloud. So, like, you can really tell that they found something that kind of works. Mm-hmm. And messages in genuine support forums and subreddits have also seen appearance, although they are being removed as quickly as possible by site owners and administrators. New ones have been taking their place as soon as they take them down, however. I think it's important to mention here that fake support calls are not a new tactic, but in this case, because threat actors are not calling out of the blue, this latest campaign adds a layer of trust and sophistication into the equation, as victims are the ones initiating the conversation. Can you imagine? I wonder if there's a hold queue. Like, you're in a hold queue to be scammed. Ugh.
Oh, probably. That would probably make the scam even more legit, right?
Oh,
if you call in and it says, "Hi, thanks for calling support. We appreciate your business. Unfortunately, volumes are higher than expected right now. Please hold and we'll be with you as soon as an agent is available." Boop. And then some, robo music comes on. Sounds legit.
Your scam is very important to us. Please hold here.
We only have one person actively taking your credit card numbers to commit fraud with. One moment.
You are victim number 17.
It's funny, but it's probably,
It probably is the case, yeah. I do think, like, if I was looking for support and someone posted, like, "Hey, I used this number and, like, they helped me out," I might give you a call.
Yeah, don't tell anyone, but there is a secret backdoor phone number, and they only give it to you after you've tried 974 emails. So after 974 emails, I got that phone number, so you should just call it and save yourself some time. You're welcome. Because that works.
Oof.
No.
Okay, so if you do find yourself using an online service and in need of support, please, it's best to go to the homepage of the company concerned and follow the guides to help from there. Definitely don't call a random number without first checking on the official service website, and remember that no genuine support center would ask for your full password over the phone or online.
Agreed. Or, this is one of those where, depending on your age group, you can either call your mom and say you're having trouble with it, or you call your kid and you say you're having trouble with it. But, those are the phone numbers you try first. You don't just try random. Nobody wants to talk to people. Don't call random internet phone numbers. Don't do it.
I always like the services that are like, we have like a code word between us, and you can go online and find out your code word.
We actually do that.
Yeah.
So we will send you an email with a randomly generated something or other. And then when we're on a phone call to verify that you're actually receiving the emails that you say you are.
Do we randomly generate them?
Yes, we do.
Oh.
We do. And it's not the last 4 digits of your Visa number.
Are they from the word generator?
Everything's from the library.
Oh, amazing. Hello, I'd like some help. Toddler painting bicycle.
Eggplant.
Oh dear. Right. Okay, so this next one. Phishing emails increasingly use SVG attachments to evade detection. So this one's from Bleeping Computer. Threat actors are frequently using scalable vector graphics. Have you heard of SVGs before? Is that like a known thing?
I have.
Yeah, okay, it's a known thing.
I have heard of it because I had to submit a logo once for a design thing. And they were like, we needed it in SVG. And I was like, that sounds complicated. And Benji was like, no, here you go, Sarah. Boop. And yeah.
I like them because they're a wide and widely used format. And they also are what my pen plotter my robotic arm works on.
Oh, nice.
So I use SVGs quite a bit. But most of the images on the internet are, of course, JPEG or PNG files, which are made of tiny grids called pixels. Each pixel has a specific color value, and together those pixels form the entire image. SVGs display differently because they use vector lines of code and shapes instead of pixels. So as these are vector images, they are automatically resized without using any loss or any image quality or making them look pixelated or anything. They are ideal really for use in browser applications. So the researchers basically established how versatile SVG attachments can be, as they're not only allow you to display graphics, but can be used to display HTML using the foreign object element, and they can also execute JavaScript when this graphic is loaded. So it allows threat actors to create SVG attachments that are not only display images, but also create phishing forms to steal credentials. In one example, a recent SVG attachment displayed a fake Excel spreadsheet with a built-in login form that, when submitted, sends the data to the threat actors. Other SVG attachments used in a recent campaign pretended to be official documents or requests for more information, prompting you to click the download button, which then downloads malware from a remote site. This is particularly grievous because SVGs look so much better in emails than just like pixelated PNGs that someone's overly optimized to make the email file size small.
Make the file size smaller.
Oh, but other campaigns have utilized SVG attachments and embedded JavaScript to automatically redirect browsers to hosting phishing forms when the image is opened as well. So the problem is, since these files are mostly just textual representations of images, they tend not to be detected by security software that often. So, with all that said, an SVG attachment is not typically common for legitimate emails. So it should immediately be treated with suspicion. Unless you are a developer and expect to receive these types of attachments, it is probably safer to delete any emails containing them. And if you are sending SVGs to people, please zip them. And then, obviously, your virus checker will run SVGs. And
yeah, it's the same instructions as before. Don't do things on the internet if you don't know what you're doing. Like, don't open attachments.
That is very true.
I had a really nice one come in on my 1Password email the other day, and it was all about scheduling assignments, and it was a password-protected document. And then I'm like, I am not clicking this. I know better. Like, you're not going to get me. But it did make it through the spam filter. It did make it through all the checkers and everything. But you just can't click stuff. It's just, don't do it. Don't do it.
Agreed.
It's fake. You know it's fake. Don't click it.
So, this last one, AI Granny is happy to talk with phone scammers all day. And this one's from TechCrunch. The UK's largest mobile network operator, O2, just introduced a chatbot designed to frustrate phone scammers. Called Daisy, with the AI of Daisy in capital letters just for cool. It mimics an older, retired woman with lots of time on her hands to chat. She covers all kinds of enthralling topics about knitting and her cat Fluffy, with the aim of keeping fraudsters endlessly engaged as they try to obtain her fake bank details. Oh dear, I've clicked the link.
Hello, scammers. I'm your worst nightmare. I'm an AI created by O2 to waste phone scammers' time. So, W's then a dot?
3 times W and then dot.
I think your profession is bothering people, right?
I'm just trying to have a little chat.
It's nearly been an hour! For the love of...
Gosh, how time flies. It's showing me a picture of my cat, Fluffy.
It's showing you a picture of your cat, Fluffy.
Stop calling me dear, you stupid...
Got it, dear. Because while they're busy talking to me, they can't be scamming you. And let's face it, dear, I've got all the time in the world.
It's very good. It's very convincing.
It's very convincing. It is... AI has a lot of power and a lot of stuff, and I saw this and I thought, this This is great fun. I think this is a nice way. Like, they've obviously programmed Daisy to be very nice and not, some of us at some point, we get a little frustrated with some of these scammers, but she does not get frustrated at all. So it was a good video. I would recommend it.
I think as soon as this AI old lady starts playing, it probably turns quite nasty. Because I do think, like, these fraudsters are very nice on the phone, all until they think that you're messing them about, and then they don't take it nicely.
I'm always surprised about when you listen to those longer ones and then they get mad at the person on the other end, like they start yelling at them. And I'm like, I get that you've just spent your whole day trying to ruin someone's life and now they've gotten in the way and they've ruined your life. But like, I don't know, wouldn't you just hang up and move on to the next person? Like, I don't know what yelling at this supposedly elderly person, whether it's an actual elderly person or it's a robot elderly person, but like, you're not getting any farther to the bank account at this point. Like, just hang up. Move on.
Very true. So I think it's literally designed to try and not make them hang up. And the press release about O2's AI Granny says it combines various AI models that transcribe the caller's voice into text before generating a response through a large language model that is custom, then feeding it through a text-to-speech model to produce a voice answer. The AI was trained in part by Jim Browning, a scam bait expert who has a very large following on YouTube. It's fun to see in practice, and Osu says the audio in the video is actually real. So, last year, the FBI reported that people over the age of 60 were swindled out of $3.4 billion via telephone scams.
That's so much money.
That is ridiculous. That is such a large amount. No wonder it's an industry. And that's up from $3.1 billion in 2022. So with generative AI taking off and voice impersonation with it, those numbers are poised to balloon as well because they can kind of automate a whole bunch of it. This is a great way of using that same AI technology as a countermeasure rather than an attack. At some point, we're going to get to an industry where robots just talk to robots on the phone.
I think we're already close to being there.
Oh, I think this is a great marketing stunt, and I hope it generates awareness of these phone scammers.
By watching the video, like, this is just some normal looking person having regular conversations, and you can hear the audio clips of the scammers really trying hard to get at this person's pension money. And it's sad to think that, you said $3.4 billion. Like, that's a lot of folks that need money for things that are legitimate and not to be spent and wasted on things like this. So hopefully it helps.
Agreed.
Dropping by to chat with me today is Frank Lee. Frank is an assistant professor in Georgia Tech's School of Cybersecurity and Privacy and School of Electrical and Computer Engineering. His research in computer security and privacy largely focuses on internet, network, and web security. In 2023, he was involved in the largest study of its kind, showing how outdated password policies are still widespread today. Frank, you are quite literally the perfect guest to join our show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing well, thank you. No one ever asks. That's
Oh, really?
I appreciate that. Nobody ever asks me. It's fantastic. All right. Can you start out giving us a little bit of background on you and your journey into cybersecurity and the research?
Yeah,
today?
sure. So as you mentioned, I'm an assistant professor here at Georgia Tech. I can also just explain at Georgia Tech, departments and schools are basically synonymous. So yeah, I'm basically part of two departments here. One is the School of Cybersecurity and Privacy, which is a pretty unique and new school here. It was actually formed just a few years ago to kind of bring together folks working on cybersecurity from across different disciplines and fields and bring them all together. And then I'm also part of the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering. So here at Georgia Tech, I do research, as you mentioned, broadly on internet, networking, web security, and privacy. I work with a great group of students here on doing that research, and I also teach classes on these topics to undergraduate and graduate students. In terms of how I got into this field and into research, I think it goes all the way back to my college days. So when I was an undergraduate and I decided I wanted to do computer science, I wanted to try and get as much experience as possible. So I wanted to get involved in research opportunities during the school year. So I tried to talk to different professors, see if I could work on, help out with some project that they're working on. But as a result, I did actually try out a lot of different things. And I ended up finding myself actually sticking to some projects that involve network security and really enjoying them, kind of really sticking with them. And that's kind of how I found myself interested in security in the first place. And after a few research projects in that direction, I decided, I want to kind of keep exploring this path. So I did my PhD, and then that led me eventually to sticking to academia and becoming a professor at Georgia Tech.
Nice. That's very cool. That's a good path. Before we dive into the findings, can you give an overview of the recent study that you undertook on password policies across popular websites and what motivated you to start this research? Like, what was it about password practices that interested you here?
Yeah, so one of the core themes of my research broadly is on trying to understand how security and privacy happens or how it manifests in reality. Because through security research, we develop a lot of really technically good solutions. We also develop a lot of best practices and recommendations. But if folks out there don't actually adopt any of these, then we aren't meaningfully improving security and privacy in practice. So kind of a core theme of my research is trying to understand how security and privacy actually happens. So this research project that we're going to focus on today kind of is part of that theme. And it focuses on password policies. So over many decades, we've done a lot of research, not me specifically, but our community had done a lot of research, particularly with passwords. And we've developed a lot of really interesting findings about what drives users to pick stronger passwords and how to actually kind of improve authentication security. This has translated to kind of best practices and kind of updated recommendations. So for example, the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, U.S. NIST, has kind of new digital identity guideline recommendations from a few years ago, and they're actually updating it again now that incorporates a lot of the research about how to handle passwords better. So where the motivation behind this research really was is to see whether websites are actually adopting these recommendations or best practices in reality. So what this study does at a very high level is that we do a large-scale automated evaluation of the password policies that websites employ so that we can actually see, how do they handle passwords? We look at a pretty diverse set of password policies, so not just the length that they require or what kind of characters they require you to have, but also do they block common passwords or do they block dictionary words? Do they allow certain kinds of unique characters like spaces or emojis in their passwords? So kind of look really comprehensively at what websites they're doing when they handle passwords.
How do you do that in an automated fashion without tripping any sort of like DDoS protections and stuff? Because I have to imagine that you're like hitting these websites, trying different things, certainly with like common passwords and stuff like that. Like, how does the tool actually work to get all this data?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the beginning, we explored a variety of different ways to try and infer what the password policies are. And ultimately, we found that most ways had just too many limitations to do a large-scale approach or a large-scale measurement. So we did do a black box approach where we want to basically test out different passwords and see are they allowed or not. And from kind of picking passwords in a very specific fashion, we can infer kind of what are the rules or the policies that they're enforcing there. So what you brought up is exactly kind of the big challenges that we had to deal with. So one, we had to automate this. So we had a web crawler that would find kind of how to create passwords on different websites and kind of automate the workflow there. And this really is a shout out to my student Rumi, who led this project, but he did a ton of engineering effort to figure out how to automate this to the best of our abilities. So the challenge is that the web is so diverse. All these websites do very different things when it comes to these workflows. So it's almost impossible to automate this for every single website, but we observe common patterns across a lot of websites. So our automation isn't perfect. It doesn't analyze every single website, but it does analyze much larger chunks than any previous study had done. And then towards the second thing that you're talking about, like, hey, if we're interacting with websites, we want to make sure that we do this in a responsible fashion because we don't want to test out a million different passwords, hit the website millions of times. So this is where we go to the kind of the second part of our approach. So we were very careful in designing our algorithm of which passwords to test. So we kind of analyzed the properties of the different password policy rules that they have, and we found out that certain ones had to come first before others. So there's kind of the dependency between some of the rules. And based off that, we were basically able to create an algorithm that tested different passwords, but tested it using as few passwords as we could to still infer the password policies. That way we can limit how often we actually interacted with the web pages. And then we also rate limited how often we did it. So for example, we're not like testing a password every few seconds, but rather, especially because we're doing a large scale study. So each website, we usually were only testing maybe, I don't know the exact rate, but maybe once every few hours or maybe even once a day. So it was actually quite distributed over time, and that helped avoid burdening the websites themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. How many websites are we talking?
Yeah, so we started with the list of 1 million websites. So in research, we have these top lists of kind of popular websites. So we started with 1 million.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, we lost a lot as our algorithm goes through its various steps. So not all websites even have, accounts and passwords. And then in some cases, we found that our inference algorithm couldn't completely run to finish, and therefore we couldn't infer the full policy. So through all of the errors and such, we do actually only get a minority of sites. So we got 20,000 sites in total. And so it is still a minority of the websites out there, but it is also much larger than any previous work that's looked at this, which has approached this from a manual perspective. So they kind of look at websites by hand. And as a result, they basically look at dozens or maybe even 100 websites. So this at least gives us a much larger scale picture of how the web is handling passwords.
So you found that many popular websites they're still allowing users to create these short and weak passwords. What are the most concerning examples of weak password policies that you discovered? Like, did anything jump out at you?
Yeah. The thing that stood out absolutely the most to me, or was the most shocking, was the length requirements. So these days, the modern recommendations for password policy focus more on length. They say we should prioritize pushing users to pick longer passwords rather than picking really complex passwords with various character types or different classes of characters and such. And so length is actually contributes more to the strength of the password. So that's why a lot of modern recommendations recommend like minimum length of 8 or longer. And what we found in the study is that the vast majority of websites don't adhere to this yet. They actually allow very weak or very short passwords. And I think the result that was most surprising to me is somewhere around like 10 to 15% of websites allowed password of a single character. So any like password. And I was actually so surprised by this that I asked my student, like, is this correct? Like, can you go to these websites and just double check that is right? And he was able to do it. He said, I typed into the letter A, clicked submit, and it accepted this password. So yeah, these websites are basically accepting anything as a password. So I found that to be one of the most surprising.
Wow. For usability, I mean, that's really high. The usability is off the charts with single character passwords, but oh no, that's really
yeah, that was super surprising. Yeah. And I'll just say one thing that I like about large scale studies, and that's kind of the theme of my research, is that you see behaviors like this that you wouldn't see if you did a small scale study. So like what previous studies did is they focused at 100 sites, for example. But they would pick the top sites. So you're talking about sites like Google or Facebook or Twitter, like sites that everyone knows. And because of that, they tend to have kind of very different password policies compared to sites once you start looking kind of deeper into the rankings, kind of less popular sites. These are where kind of unique behaviors will start to pop up that you wouldn't see for just looking at the top sites.
Yeah. Did the study cover any banking websites by any chance?
We didn't specifically look at the different categories of websites because we had 20,000 websites. There are great data sets for kind of classifying websites are which. I would not be surprised if there were some financial websites in there, but I didn't look at any specific examples. One would hope that they don't exhibit such weak password policies.
Yeah. I'll send you the list of banks that I use personally after this, and then you can just cross-check for me, and we'll see if I have to make any changes. All right. So only like 28% of the websites that you studied enforced the password block list, meaning that like there's a common set of passwords that they're just known, they're compromised, people should not be using them. How does the absence of like these block lists increase the vulnerability for attacks against these websites?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is another one of the password policy components that is widely recommended. So besides length, I think one of the most affected ones is to employ a password block list. And this is because attackers out there are clever. They know that a lot of users try and pick very similar passwords. And because of that, they can use an attack called password spraying, where basically attackers say, hey, I know that these are likely the top 10 passwords that people pick. I'm just going to randomly, blindly test these top 10 passwords. And it's going to actually work on a pretty large portion of users or accounts that I'm trying to break into. So this is why employing a password block list is so effective or so important. Because if we have this list as well, and we don't allow users to pick them, then attackers won't be successful when you do this sort of spraying attack. So this is widely recommended. It's been recommended for many years. But yeah, we observed that only less than a third of websites actually employ this. So during our measurement, basically we tested one of the very common passwords and it was accepted.
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of infer that the block list is not actually being employed.
So we've got sites that aren't employing block lists. We also have sites that are using really old guidelines. What are some of the guidelines that you saw that that these websites are still recommending?
Yeah, so it's a little interesting in that we see kind of different behaviors for kind of really popular top-ranked websites versus a kind of a lower rankings, kind of in the longer tail there. So with top websites, we see a lot of them are still heavily enforcing various character composition requirements, like you need to have uppercase, lowercase, special character, and such. You need 2 of those characters, things like that. So back in, I think, 2004, when US NIST released kind of their earlier version of their digital identity guideline, they recommended kind of using these composition requirements. But what research showed was that these tend to actually push users to pick kind of more simplistic passwords because they introduce complexity in the password. So users naturally gravitate to kind of counteract that and still pick a password that they can remember. So they start to exhibit very common or kind of use certain patterns that turn out to be easy to crack those passwords. So this is why, after the research showed this, the modern recommendation is not to emphasize these composition requirements, but rather focus more on things like strength and block lists and such. So what we observe with top ranked websites, though, is that they widely still employ these composition requirements, probably because they're adhering to kind of the earlier guidelines. So that kind of forces kind of more usability challenges for a lot of users. For lower ranked websites, they seem actually a little bit more compliant with the modern recommendations, but I think it's actually because they have very simplistic policies. So they just didn't enforce a lot of things to begin with. And it turns out over the years that our recommendations have shifted to simpler policies.
Yeah.
So it turns out that maybe if we had talked like a decade ago, we would have said all of these low-ranked websites are not actually adhering to modern guidelines. But now, since the guidelines have actually shifted, they can naturally have ended up looking actually better or kind of more adherent to modern guidelines than some of the top-ranked websites.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of an interesting shift over time.
That's really funny. What do you think are the main challenges that the companies are facing today when it comes to implementing password policies that are up to date and that are secure and everything else? Like what's making it hard?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one that I'm not going to say I really know the full answer to. We know a little bit though, because we also did another study where we did interviews with some web administrators who manage password policies, and we asked them various questions about like how they pick their password policies and what updating it might entail. So kind of the insights that we've gotten are that this is actually really not a trivial process just to update a policy. Like, sure, maybe there's some configuration or a code that you can easily update to get the new policy, but it has kind of broader implications. So for example, what about all the users that have the old passwords chosen under the old policy now? What are you going to do with them? Are you going to force them to reset so they all adhere to the new policy, or do you kind of leave them and hope that they over time will update their policy update their password at some point and therefore adhere to the new policy? But if that's the case, now you've got the users kind of split between 2 password populations with different policies and such. And that can be confusing when you're trying to do analytics or things like that. So I think this actually is less trivial than one might think. So this actually is a pretty involved process to do so. And a lot of organizations probably don't want to deal with that. Maybe they don't feel like this is the highest priority thing to focus on, whether it comes to security or other things. So I think that's probably what's led to kind of the lack of momentum in switching to kind of newer policies there.
Okay, so the study, through one lens, can paint a pretty pessimistic picture. Do you think that we're still making strides, though, with good password habits and hygiene? Or do we still have a ways to go to raise awareness and see that these things are widely adopted and improve quality and things of that nature?
Yeah, so it is a little bit of a pessimistic story in the sense that we do find a lot of websites with kind of weak, less secure password policies. But I think even if it's pessimistic, it helps move us in the right direction. I think the overall security field has moved significantly forward in terms of understanding how to improve password practices. And we do see websites adopting these modern recommendations, even if many don't. All of the users of these websites will now benefit. So even if one major website with, let's say, millions of users updates their password policies, then that brings benefits to the millions of their users. So I think while the percentage of sites that are adhering, for example, may not always be at the level that we'd like. Even if we can get some movement, it can still help a lot of different users. So I think overall, we're still making progress, still slowly, step by step. I think we'll improve things. And beyond just passwords, I think the research field and industry has kind of moved forward in terms of how do we just make authentication more secure overall. So password policies are just one component of that. But as kind of an entire research field and part of industry, I think we've actually improved authentication a lot over the years.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about some of the future of authentication, because we've seen things over the last couple of years like passkeys coming out, right? Where websites are starting to adopt passkeys in addition to usernames and passwords. I don't know that I can name a single website that is passkey only at this point. But like that's sort of where we're headed, and additional use of like biometrics and things like that. Like, have you noticed a shift through your research towards the more modern means of authentication?
Yeah, so I think there's a few developments in authentication over the, let's say, last decade-ish that I think have been really promising. So passkeys is one that's been very recent. Talk briefly about that in a second. But a few others that I've noticed is, so one is the increasing adoption of two-factor or multi-factor authentication. I think that's also another big one. And then there's also password managers. I think they've been adopted more and more over the years, and people have kind of recognized the value of using these tools. So I think the combination of these different directions are all kind of helping to move authentication security forward. And I think through my research, yeah, we do see kind of improvements along all of these different directions. So yeah, password managers, more users are aware of them. They're using them more. With two-factor authentication, a lot more websites support them now than, say, a decade ago. In fact, I would struggle to think of any major website that I use on a daily basis that actually doesn't allow two-factor authentication. They might not enforce it by default, but at least there's the option there. So like that makes it so that the password is not the sole piece of the kingdom, but now you've got a second layer of defense there. And now more recently with passkeys and FIDO2, yeah, we've seen incredible momentum there. And I think it's actually super exciting because people have been trying to kill passwords for forever. And now we actually have a solution that is seeing adoption in practice. We've got the major browsers and OS supporting this. We've got actual authenticator vendors out there. And we actually have major websites now supporting it. So you can actually log in. And I think this is super promising. It's super exciting. And it's been designed in a way that provides a lot of authentication security, but also is usable enough for people to actually consider replacing passwords with it. So I think these are very promising things that we've seen, both in my research, but just broadly in society overall. And I think it's really promising.
Yeah. The adoption by popular websites was surprising to me because it felt at the beginning, and I'm sure it was, like it was a sort of like a niche, nerdy thing that existed out in the world. But then I remember like I was logging into Home Depot to buy something, and it was like, hey, do you want to use a passkey? And I was like, Home Depot wants me to use a passkey? Sure, yeah, let's do it. So I think that'll help.
I had a very similar experience. So I've done a little bit of research on passkeys in the past. And yeah, I always thought that this is a really cool technological solution and they have good usability. But would people actually, like regular folks out there, actually use it? And then, yeah, I just start seeing people around. In many cases, don't even realize they're using FIDO2 or passkeys, but they're just thinking, hey, I'm logging in with my fingerprint or my Touch ID.
Right.
But they're actually using passkeys or FIDO2. So I think the transition has been smoother and also kind of more momentum than I would have expected. But I think that's great. I think we have a long way to go still, of course, but
yeah,
at least really promising early progress with passwordless authentication.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, putting the study aside, are there any other aspects of security that are kind of grabbing your interests right now? Like where do you think you're going to focus next from a research point of view?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we kind of already touched on one topic. So I'm broadly interested in authentication. So this is kind of what drove a lot of the research that I've done on passwords. But as passkeys is gaining adoption, I do see this as a significant part of our future. I will say, don't think passwords are going to go away anytime soon. So I think we're going to live in a dual world where we'll have passwords for some contexts, we'll have passkeys for other contexts. So we're going to have both. And I think both are still important to look at, but I think passkeys is a really exciting place to look at. So I think moving forward, I do want to do more research onto passkeys, like looking at how different websites are starting to roll out passkeys. So passkeys themselves actually are not simple either. So they involve configuration and policies by the relying party or the websites themselves. Authenticators also have kind of various different properties. So I'm actually really interested in understanding how kind of FIDO2 is looking in reality when it comes to security, privacy, as well as usability. So that's kind of one direction that I've been kind of really interested in kind of pushing towards.
Nice. Based on your research and your expertise, this is a question we tend to ask all of our guests. Do you have some tips to offer our listeners for improving personal security, password related or otherwise?
Yeah, so it might be unsurprising given where my research focuses, but I think a lot of the tips that I give just to people in general is around authentication, because I think this is actually probably one of the main things, because people use online accounts. These accounts are often where cyber criminals or cyber attackers will target, and that's where a lot of the damage is done. So I think for authentication, if you're using passwords, of course, try and pick a stronger password, or better yet, use a password manager that can help you track your passwords, but also hopefully automatically create a strong password for you. Try and enable two-factor or multi-factor authentication on your kind of important accounts, especially ideally on all accounts that support it. I know it's a little bit of a burden to, go to your cell phone and add the code on the text or use the app that you're using for two-factor or whatnot. But most websites don't require you to two-factor authenticate every single time, unless it's like a super critical website. So I think the burden is a little bit reduced, but I think it's actually really worth it in terms of security, especially for any account that you really value. And then better yet, if you're kind of willing and able to adopt some of the new technology like passkeys, I think that actually gets rid of passwords from the equation and provides really strong security. So I think those are kind of a progression of ways that you can better security authentication. The one other kind of direction I also mentioned is to try and apply software updates relatively quickly. I know that people are really hesitant to update software, like it might change some of the features and functionality, but a lot of these updates have security fixes. So if you don't update and kind of wait a very long time, your software itself might have vulnerabilities that can be targeted. So I would strongly encourage people to try and update relatively frequently. Like if you want to wait a few days, that's fine. Ideally, you wouldn't, but if you want to wait a few days, that's fine, as long as you're trying to update regularly and update. I think those are probably the two biggest sets of advice I tend to give people.
That last one is something that, like, as someone in the security industry, I am very familiar with, right? Like that is it's hammered home with us every day, pretty much at work. That is not in the public consciousness at all to stay on top of updates.
Yeah, updates are, I think, a really difficult challenge because people have been burned by updates enough that they don't want to deal with it. They also, updates naturally often disrupt the task that you're trying to do. Like you're using an app on your phone and it says, hey, we've got a new version. Like if you're in the middle of something, you don't want to update. So I do think that updates are really challenging, and we've seen like updates conceptually are not like super technically interesting, but just the fact that, after decades, we struggle to get people to update. I agree. This is a big challenge, but I think if you can update, it will help a lot, because a lot of the security problems that arise is because people are using outdated software rather than unknown zero-day vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. To wrap things up, where can people go to learn more about you and your ongoing research?
Yeah, so I'm an assistant professor at Georgia Tech, so I do have a webpage at Georgia Tech. If you just Google for my name, Frank Lee at Georgia Tech, you'll find my homepage, and that's where I keep it pretty up to date on some of my latest research and the students that I work with, which my research group really deserves the lion's share of the credit for this research. They're the ones that really drive this. And yeah, you can kind of see what I'm working on, what I'm researching, what I'm teaching. So, and I'm always happy to connect with folks who are interested in talking about internet, network, web security, and privacy.
Nice. Very, very cool. Frank, thank you so much for joining us today. This was fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
We're going to jump on over to Ask 1Password, our advice segment where you can ask Roo anything. This is where we answer your listener questions, whether they be security related or otherwise, perhaps biscuit and or cheese related. Today we have an email from Miles who writes, "Hi, random but memorable team. I love listening to the podcast and appreciate how you make security and privacy tips so accessible. I'm reaching out because I'd love some advice on tackling a project I'm wanting to dive into for a while. Cleaning up my digital footprint while online.
Ooh.
Specifically, I'm interested in reducing my online presence by removing old accounts, minimizing the data tied to my name, and streamlining my digital life overall. Could you share any tips or best practices for a project like this? I would love to know." So, He would love to know our personal opinions on this, how 1Password might be able to help with this cleanup process, such as Watchtower and, any other features we might have, as well as if there are any other reputable tools or service that you would recommend, and, whether or not they can be trusted or anything else that might make this process easier. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts, and thank you for all you do to keep the security advice both fun and memorable. Best wishes, Miles. And I'm going to say thank you for the Miles right off the hop, because I am one of those people who needs to clean up their stuff. Last night I was trying to do something for my mom, and there's like a login from 6 years ago that I know is not going to work. I don't know why I have it. I'm a digital hoarder, so I am like Miles and I need to clean things up. So what do you got for me, Auntie Roo?
Yeah, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you head over to www.x.com, and you're going to log in and go to your account details and then find the means to delete that account. So that's a good place to start. I did that one the other day. It felt great.
Is that the thing before we do that? Like, should I be joining Blue Sky?
I think so. Yeah, I started with Threads. I'm actually installing Blue Sky right now because I hadn't done that yet. So thank you for the reminder. But I think Blue Sky might be the thing where everyone's going.
Okay.
I haven't used one of these other services, and I'll be honest, there is some hesitation. You could probably hear it in my voice. Like, I don't know that I trust giving. I'm assuming I would have to give login credentials to a third party to go in and like clean things up, and I don't want to do that. I wonder if any of these will just like run a report based on maybe your email address and common usernames and say, hey, did you know that you have an account on Foursquare? And also, did you know that Foursquare is still a thing? But I don't know for sure. So
hang on, is Foursquare still a thing?
It's a tough one.
It is still a thing.
Is it truly?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I think the best thing that we have is one of the simplest. And it's, you can sort in 1Password by when was the last time you used something or created it as well. And so I would definitely do that. Just sort by like, created by, and then look at some of your oldest accounts and go through them. And yeah, I'm terrible for this because I explore different technologies and all this kind of stuff. Like I fiddle with things and tinker and stuff. Connecting one API to another and stuff is, for some reason, what I do for fun. I create accounts for all of this stuff, and then I find out that it's too hard and I don't want to do it again, and then I just leave that account hanging around. Mm-hmm. So I leave a trail of account debris behind me, and I don't like it.
Yeah. Do you know, so one of my oldest logins is for a service that doesn't even exist anymore, which is Delicious. I think it was that old like URL. It was like a synced bookmarking service, right?
That still exists, doesn't it?
That doesn't appear to be a thing. I don't, secure.delicious.com doesn't open anything up, so.
Yeah, it still exists.
It's not there.
Oh, no. No, it doesn't.
Okay. This is fascinating radio. Also, from March 2009, my Dave Matthews Band fan account is also one of my oldest things that I have. I wonder if this still works.
Nice.
That's wild. I kind of want to know what my oldest account is.
I've got a handy Flickr account. I don't know if you ever used Flickr.
Yeah.
It was a picture sharing one.
Yeah.
I legit have too many things that say not available. It's been that long.
Let's see. Oh, I cannot log. My Dave Matthews account doesn't work anymore. I clearly have some cleanup to do. This has been a great email. What a great question.
Yeah. Thank you, Miles.
Oh, I've got one for Fitbit.com. I haven't used them in ages.
I remember when we Fitbit challenged, and it was back when like electronics weren't waterproof.
Oh, I remember. We all had one of those little ones that connected to your belt.
And we were trying to like not be sedentary and like, look at us, we can move and do stuff. We want to encourage healthy habits.
And now I bought a treadmill desk, and Roo shamed me for it.
Yeah, that's okay. It's, you know what, I'm proud of you. You need something to work off all that goddamn cheese.
Oh, tell me about it.
Oh, I was going to say, it's all about the cheese.
Oh, man.
Have you figured out the breathing on the treadmill yet?
I have. You just set it to like less than a kilometre per mile, and then it feels like one of those airport travelators. And so it's really slow. I'm more just like a jaunt, a slow wander.
A jaunt.
Is the dial, like, when do you actually like turn the dial to useless? Is that the setting then for it?
Yeah. You turn it on and it slowly comes up to speed, And you're like, has it got there yet? Has it got there yet?
Okay, well, thank you, Miles, for your question. If you have any questions or need some advice in your life from Agony Aunt Roo, please send your emails over to podcast@onepassword.com. You can include your name, you can remain anonymous, whatever makes you happy, and we will be happy to answer your questions and hopefully improve your life online a little bit. As I think we all have to go do some cleaning up now along with Miles. So with that, I think we're over to you, Matt.
Password panic.
Finally, I think we can finish our show with some password panic. So let's take it away with the jingle.
Password panic. Answer quick, recall the list, and only time will show how the competition in this edition of Password Panic will go.
Wow.
It's amazing that we commissioned that, but it still does sound like AI.
That is AI, isn't it?
No.
That's a real person?
That's a real person, yeah.
Well, it could very well be a real person who sells us AI. We don't actually know.
Oh, now we're talking.
I love it.
You never know.
Okay, welcome to Password Panic. This is everyone's favourite fast-paced memory testing trivia game. Here, we have to answer a number of general knowledge questions to create one long password, but it's not quite that simple. When answering, Roo and Sarah must recite and remember every correct answer from the round, in order, before adding the new one to the list. As this long list grows, we will begin to create a complex password. Whichever host recalls the most correct answers is crowned the winner, although it usually descends into chaos long before that. This is our last standard round of Password Panic, where we'll be continuing to choose a letter to start our answers. But the next episode, we will play a final themed round for our festive special.
I love that we still pretend that this game has a winner. It's so good.
I love that we pretend we're going to get to the end of the game. Like, we don't even,
I know.
It's endurance. That's the winner of this game. Okay, number one. Have you got your buzzers ready?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and my alphabet selector, so I know once we get the first clue done, I'm ready to go.
Which American rock band is known for hits like All the Small Things and Watch My Age Again?
Be-doo.
Oh, I think that was just Roo there.
That would be Blink 182.
Yes, it would. Okay. 1 point. Here we go. What superhero identity does Bruce Wayne take on to fight crime in Gotham City? I think that was Sarah.
I haven't even heard Roo, so I don't know how you could think it was
Go
Roo.
ahead. It was you.
I said Sarah. Oh, no, I said it's definitely Sarah.
But you said you think it was Sarah, because I'm like, I didn't hear any competition there.
I didn't hear it over the sound of my own voice, to be
I'm
honest.
all getting aggressive because I know the answer. Blink 182 and Batman.
Okay, yes, that is correct. All right, number 3.
That's my only superhero.
What is the term for a small, thin loaf of bread popular in France?
Bing.
That was Roo.
That's Blink 182, Batman, and a baguette.
Yes, that is correct. Okay, number 4. What is the capital city of Hungary?
Bidoo?
Sarah.
Blink 182, Batman, baguette, Budapest?
That is correct. You know, it's a lot easier to read out the questions than it is to play this game.
That's surprising.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Number 5. What is the name of the tall plant-eating dinosaur with a large body and long neck?
Bidoo.
Sarah.
Blink 182, Batman, baguette, Budapest, Brontosaurus.
I just need to Google something. Okay, I'm going to give you that. I had Brachiosaurus written down.
I was going to say Brachiosaurus is the one that sneezes snot all over the people in Jurassic Park, but a Brontosaurus is all...
They both technically do have are plant-eating and do have a large body and long neck, so I'm going to give you that one. Okay, number 6. Which colour do you get when you mix all the primary colours of paint together?
Bing.
Roo.
Blink 182, Batman, baguette, Budapest, Brachiosaurus, and black.
That is incorrect.
What?
Oh, okay.
Sarah, your chance to take it all.
Oh, no. Oh, God damn it.
I'm going to go with Blink 182, Batman, baguette, Budapest, Brachiosaurus or Brontosaurus. Lots of B words. And is it brown?
That is correct.
It's brown. Oh, I'm so embarrassed.
Is that where we stop it? Is that where we crown the winner?
No, because there's no winner. We just keep going.
There's never a winner.
Okay, we're just going to keep going. Okay, number 7. Which animal is known as the symbol of Canada and builds dams?
Bidoo.
Sarah.
That's an easy. I'm waiting. It's actually. I thought we actually switched to the Grey Jay, but that's not a bee. So I know we're going for Blink 182, Batman Baguette, Budapest, Brachiosaurus Brontosaurus, Brown, and a beaver.
That is correct.
Yay.
Okay. What is the nickname of the item issued to nuclear officials in the US to authorize a nuclear launch? I feel like we just went from 1 to 10 in difficulty here.
What?
Can you ask that again, please?
Yeah,
what is the nickname of the item issued to nuclear officials in the US to authorize a nuclear launch?
That doesn't start with a B.
Isn't it like is it football? Like I want to whisper like
it's the football.
It's a part of the nuclear football. The president must be positively identified by using a special code on a plastic card that is nicknamed something. I don't know how we are against Googling the answer, but I would suggest that this particular part of the round is now fastest finger first.
Are we allowed to Google?
No.
No. See, I feel like this is where we should just workshop the answer, and then whoever can put it in order first gets it. Like, all I can think is something silly like bald eagle. Give us a hint that sounds like what it could be.
It is 2 different types of things in the US versus the UK. In the US, you might have them with gravy, and in the UK, we have them with tea.
Oh, Bidoo.
A biscuit? Really?
Yeah, that's going to be it. That's going to be it. Go for it.
Sarah, you buzzed first there.
Oh, okay. Blink 182, Batman, Budapest, Brown.
No.
Brachiosaurus Brontosaurus.
I'm sorry, that is not correct.
No? Oh, okay.
Roo, your attempt.
Yeah, Blink 182, Batman Baguette, Budapest, Brachiosaurus. Was it Beaver next, or was there something before Beaver? Something before Beaver.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I lost the thread. I lost it.
Before that.
That was it.
Okay. Well, you got it eventually. It was biscuit. It's
I've
the
never
biscuit
heard that
in the
before.
nuclear football.
Biscuit in a football? Never. I can see why that part doesn't make it into the movies. Where's the biscuit?
Hey, who's got the biscuit? Who's got the biscuit? Get the biscuit. That's not... Like, the football sounds cool. Biscuit sounds...
Some guy in a corner shoving a biscuit in his mouth.
There's no 90s action movie called the Nuclear Biscuit, is there? Yeah. Everybody learned something here.
I did learn something. What was before Beaver?
Brown.
Brown. Oh, right, of course.
Brown beaver biscuit. All right. I think what is left to say is, love you, bye.
We have to just say bye-bye because of the theme. Today's Password Panic was brought to you by the letter B. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yeah, love you both. Bye.
Love you both. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you could subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also leave us a rating or review. It's one of the best ways to support the Random Memorable podcast, and we always enjoy reading your feedback. We're also a community-led podcast, so if you have any questions for us to answer in Ask One Password, topics, requests, or even guests that you'd like to hear from, please send us a message to podcast@onepassword.com. We read all of your comments and look forward to hearing from you. We hope you join us next episode for plenty more random moments in the world of cybersecurity.